What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. The longest mischief trial of all time is now concluding as Tamara Lich and Chris Barber show up in a court in Ottawa to find out their fate. Now, if you joined me on the channel previously, as everybody is well aware, the Crown prosecution is seeking 7 years for Tamara Lich and 8 years for Chris Barber in a jail for mischief. Keep in mind, Moose on the Loose pointed out on the Twitter platforms yesterday that a man who recently committed vehicular manslaughter and unalived somebody was only given 5 years, I believe it was. Yet Tamara gets more for a crime that's usually reserved for things like spray painting a wall or shoplifting. Unbelievable the way our government's acting. But I do want to show what's happening right now for anybody who isn't following or who doesn't have the ability to follow. Over on X right now, Ezra Levant is actually outside the courthouse. Let me get more centered on the camera there. He's covering everything that's happening in the trial. Again, I'll be here tomorrow to give an update as to where things ended. I just wanted to keep people up to date right now that the trial is ongoing today, tomorrow, and I believe there's more days coming up in August. Not sure when we're going to hear what's happening in terms of a sentence. But here's the rundown. Actually, media, mainstream prostitute media, has actually been kicked out of the event. I'm going to cover that, but first, let's take a look at Ezra's updates. This is real time, folks. I've just hit the refresh button, so let's start at the beginning. I'm outside the courtroom 5 in Ottawa Courthouse. The judge is inside hearing another matter. There's more than 50 people waiting at the door to go in the sentencing hearing as usual. The course of justice is slow and punitive, which seems to be the whole point of it. So I'm going to try to read some of these fast. I will be skipping over some of them, folks, because otherwise this video will go on forever. Tamara has been through the longest mischief trial. We know this. The absurdity of the sentencing hearing is an echo of the larger abusive malpractice. The court has set aside 2 days with the possibility of a third for sentencing. It's absurd that this would take more than an hour. Again, I agree. Now he goes on to kind of give a rundown of what's happening. 2 out of the 3 Coots accused were let go with no jail. Same with Arthur Pawlowski, who was also convicted of a similar offense, just time served. Keep in mind, Arthur Pawlowski was jailed multiple times throughout the pandemic, and while it's a travesty what happened to him, it seems like the use of, or at least the intention to bring firearms to the Coots protest is essentially mixed with entrapment from RCMP is what resulted in jail time for those boys. But there was none of that with Tamara and Chris. Goes down to Ezra saying, we're in the courtroom now. We're just waiting on the judge who took a break after her morning hearing on another matter. I'm in the front row along with a few other reporters from the mainstream media. There are also other citizen journalists here. I know Dacey Media's there, Chris Dacey. The judge walks in. Her name is Justice Heather Perkins McVeigh. One of the prosecutors notes that her colleague had a death in the family and isn't here. Of course, there are 3 defense lawyers too. Keep in mind, that's your tax dollars, folks, paying for this mischief trial. Not the defense lawyers, but the mischief trial. Tamara's in the courtroom. Chris Barber, her co-accused, joins via video link as usual. There are problems with the sound quality. The judge reminds people to put their phones on silent. Says here, 1 lawyer is blocking my view, 3 of 4 defense counsel. So 7 lawyers, 3 clerks, 1 judge, at least a dozen cops outside the door. Millions of dollars spent hounding Tamara, all because she embarrassed the government. Now the judge addresses Lawrence Greenspan, Tamara Lich's lead counsel. Again, it's procedural matters. So there's a lot of video links that go on. They're back in the courtroom. Tamara's lawyer and judge are still talking about paperwork. It's 11 a.m., an hour after the proceedings were supposed to begin. This is how the media, or this is how this has turned into the longest mischief trial in Canadian history. Very government-ish, very Ottawa-ish, isn't it? And then Ezra goes on to say what I just said, and your taxes are paying for it all. This is the one problem I have with this trial, is that essentially our tax dollars are funding the prosecution of national heroes. Victim impact statements in criminal courts. These are typically letters from people who have been robbed, stabbed, etc. In this case, it's liberal bureaucrats who didn't like the peasants who thought they could just walk into Ottawa and honk their horns and know your place. Prosecutor Westshire, the convoy's harm was vast. You will never find a more woke lawyer arguing the more thin-skinned, microaggression-sensitive community. She says 7 years is reasonable, given that the court could theoretically do 10 years. What are we doing here? What are we talking about? Westshire says it's profound harm to the public, lots of hurt feelings, lots of sensibilities offended, snobby noses out of joint. This is Doug Ford's prosecutor. The judge interrupts, what about the Alberta decisions, meaning the Coots cases? Westshire says that wasn't in the capital city. Westshire is saying that there was never been a case like this before, nothing at all, not Coots, not Greenpeace protests. It's so different. All of those precedents should be thrown out, and Tamara should go to prison for 7 years. This is Doug Ford's prosecutor. Again, there's no mention of the religious protests that block Canadian streets every weekend, almost on a daily basis, bridges that have been blocked. One thing they keep bringing up is that the bridge to the U.S. was blocked, the Windsor Bridge. Where are we talking about police who brought protesters coffee instead of mounting up to trample them and jail them? Let's get back to Ezra's updates. Westshire claims that this isn't about pushing political expression. I don't think it's a person who, in this court, who believes that, including Westshire. Judge interrupts to say there are 2 other journalists who want to observe the hearing via Zoom. One is from Global. Keep that one in mind, folks, because this is what I was getting to at the beginning of the video. And one is from True North. The judge approves their joining, says that she wants to give them instructions on what not to do, though, so we're doing that now. Alex Zoltan from True North introduces himself. The judge tells him to keep his camera off and stay muted. One of Chris Barber's lawyers says she wants to see Zoltan's face for some reason. Now he's on screen. He looks like he would have preferred not to have his camera on. Marc-Andre Cossette is the other from Global News who seems to have cut out. The court is in a brief recess for tech. While we're waiting, again, here's the 47% sentencing brief. Now, we showed that on another video, at least the portion of it that's important. Ezra goes on to post highlights of the Freedom Convoy and why this is a travesty. I'm just waiting for the judge to return. It's now 11:30, 90 minutes after the hearing was supposed to begin, and we're still on housekeeping. This is the most Ottawa thing you can imagine. What an embarrassment. Pointing out there's a lot of mainstream media there. Paul Champ has a tweet that has been now deleted. The judge is back. She says the Global News producer has to show his face to her on Zoom. He doesn't comply, so the judge doesn't allow him in. The judge is still puttering around the Global News guy. It's almost 12 noon and we haven't had one substantive minute of this hearing. Why not? Because this trial has been a feast for so many government workers. Stretch it out. Why not? Again, racking up the bill. These lawyers aren't cheap, keep in mind. Prosecutor goes on to say the convoy was not violent, but was not peaceful either. So what are we calling it? It's like saying you didn't hit somebody, but you did. Judge refers to the fact that the imposition on the Emergencies Act was found to be illegal and unconstitutional by the federal courts. Prosecutor Westshire said was not peaceful, was prolonged civil disobedience. Again, more replies. Prosecutor acknowledges to the judge that Lich and Barber had cooperated with the authorities in terms of mitigating the impact of the convoy lives on residents. And again, Vesper breaking a big story on those involved and how Justin Trudeau essentially broke the law. I'll be covering that in another video. Shout out to Vesper for bringing all that work to light. Prosecutor says defendants never said everybody go home. Judge interrupts the prosecutor again to emphasize that Tamara Lich and Chris Barber had no idea about all the conduct by all those protesting, and it would be absurd to hold them accountable for everything everywhere, which is clearly the prosecutor's goal. Prosecutor says they never advocated for violence, they advocated for the opposite. I thought she just said it wasn't peaceful. Global News producer wants in, so the judge is interrupting again. Looks like Global News has two people. Judge asks them to turn on their camera. The first guy does, the second guy doesn't, or maybe it's double. Who knows? What a gong show. Prosecutor starts again. She says streets were blocked and obstructed. Prosecutor, Ottawa police claimed the convoy cost $55 million. Did that include horseshoes? Again, as we're coming in. The cops stayed at Chateau Laurier, literally the most expensive hotel in the city. Again, the hypocrisy is outstanding. That was the last update as of 6 minutes ago at the time of filming this video. The reason I wanted to bring you this, folks, is because it paints a picture just to how much money is being wasted on this trial, the hypocrisy of everything. Not only are they over 2 hours in, with no proceedings even beginning, this is why they need multiple days. This is why they can't just cut down to the nitty-gritty and tell Tamara and Chris what their fates are going to be. Regardless, I can tell you right now, I reached out to Tamara this morning. I've told her I'm there in spirit. So are every single Canadian who values exactly what Tamara and Chris have done. I wish her Godspeed as well as Chris. I hope everything turns out for the better. Again, I would predict, and I don't want to be a bummer on this video, there's going to be some form of jail time. The question is how much? And where do we go from there? It's a real travesty to see actual heroes being completely torn apart by the government simply because they chose to speak up, and they didn't break windows. They didn't chase people out of the streets. They didn't wave offensive flags or shout, anybody should go away permanently. They didn't burn any flags. There was nothing negative done at the greatest protest of all time. It's just very sad to see that when you go up against the government, they will do everything in their power to make sure you cannot speak up again. And as you look at the path being created by Mark Carney to essentially bankrupt the country, to flip it on its head and milk it dry just as he did for the Bank of England, that's a very scary precedent, knowing that Canadians can lose everything in the blink of an eye if they dare question those in power. Let me know what you guys think down below. Again, keep your eyes glued to the channel. I will be showing what Vesper has pulled up in a following up, like a follow-up video. I will be updating you guys tomorrow as to how things went in the courts, where we stand, what the future looks like, I guess. So join me for those. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, make sure to hit that button. Turn on the bell for all notifications so that you're aware whenever a video drops on this channel. You don't miss a beat. Join me live on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our weekly live streaming show where I'm joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we go back and forth with everything that happened this week in Canadian politics, everything we know coming up in the weeks ahead, as well as your Q&A within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. I look forward to chatting with you guys each and every week to hear what you have to say. I most look forward to chatting with you this Friday night, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.